We're combining all the best old school wisdom with all the top new school methods to bring you the optimal way to coach and play the great game of baseball. This is the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass with Coach Bo.
Welcome, coaches, to the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass, our weekly get-together. In this episode, this week, we're going to talk about something that we should all be doing as coaches at the end of the season. As the season finishes up or just after the season finishes, we'll talk about that. We will also talk about a specific recommendation that all pitchers should follow. And when I say all pitchers, it's going to look a little different, but the parameters of this movement that pitchers make should be very similar across the board. And we're going to get a little jump start on the summer and on next year, because putting those routines in place, putting your system in place, means you need to take the summer, early fall, preferably the summer, have your system in place, your routines in place, have your drills lined up, and we will discuss, albeit briefly, why this is important and why there's a specific time of year for this to be done or to optimize it. All right, end of the season is coming up for certain teams, certain areas of the country. And if it's not coming up, the spring season is already finished up, or it's getting close to finishing up. Or if you are predominantly a summer-based season, if you live in the very far north, then you can do this at the end of summer. And that is an end of the year survey. Feedback from your players, feedback from your team's parents. We want to try to make this anonymous if we can. Now, making sure that everybody gets it done and then also keeping it anonymous, sometimes there's a challenge there because you're not sure who turned it in and who didn't turn it in. But an end of the year survey, feedback for the coaching staff, can be very beneficial. I think the important part here is that you try your best to make it anonymous so you get some very honest feedback, if you can do that. And also the questions. You want quality answers. We have to ask quality questions. The better the question, the better the information we can get from it. And I think anonymous surveys allow for a more open format, a more upfront, more honesty. I recommend that you do these surveys via email. So you send the survey, or more importantly, you send the link. Google Forms. I know not everybody's a big fan of Google, but Google Forms, or the idea of a Google form, which can be an anonymously filled out survey simply by emailing all your parents from your team, all your players, a link. Now, some of you are like, Coach, my players are 7U. They don't have email. 9U, they don't have emails yet. Okay. For those players, you can send it to the parent and have them work together on it. For older players, if you're working with 14U, you might have two sets of surveys. You know your team, you know your parents best. You know where the quality information and the quality answers are going to come from in terms of, do you need to send it to your parents and have them do it individually, parent and player, do two separate surveys? They're 14U, or if you're high school, this is definitely something that can be split up. It should be players and parents. And those questions are going to be different for parents and players. Sending it to a 7U player and parents, 8U, 9U, 10U, even 11U, you know what your players are capable of doing. You know your team very well. But I definitely think that we would all agree that 7U, 8U, 9U, first grade, second grade, third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders aren't going to necessarily give the best quality feedback that we can utilize, although they definitely have some thoughts and they definitely know what they enjoyed, but sometimes articulating it or filling out a survey isn't as easy for them. So you can involve the parents. However you slice it, you want to get quality feedback about the season, about different parts of the season too. So a couple sample questions. These are for the players. What are the two favorite things that we did at our practices? What are your favorite things? What are your favorite two things? So you're asking this to the player. What are your favorite two things that we did during our practices? You could say three things. You could, one thing, I don't think, sometimes I think that leaves out, maybe sometimes they can't narrow it down. So you give them two answers to input. I would also write in there, what are your favorite two specific things we did during our practice time? Another question, another sample question or example of a question. And you can write these how you think best will get the information from your players, from your parents. Another question, what is one hitting skill that you are going to work on before next season? What's one hitting skill that you are going to improve improve before next season? Another question, what is one defensive skill? Notice how I don't say, what are 3 things defensively, or 3 things here, or 10 things here, or 5 things here? What are the 2? So I break it down into, I think it's good to ask hitting skill. What is the main hitting skill that you are going to work on before next season? Or you could ask, what is the one hitting skill that you are going to work on before next season that will make you a much better hitter or help you the most when it comes to hitting? Again, it revolves around that 80-20 principle. Another question you can have on the survey, what is one base running skill that you are going to work on before next season? Some players may just simply say, get faster. Some may say, get quicker. Some may say, work on sliding. Some may say, reading ball in the dirt. Some may say, rounding the bases better, a more efficient base running path. So there's definitely different answers there. And this allows them to share with you, and also for them to internalize and to synthesize and think about it within and kind of reflect on what are the things they need to get better at. Because some of these players, you may not coach them next year. In fact, you may not coach all but a couple of them next season. You may get the whole team back. But I do think this is something that serves them. The first question that I said, the first example question, what are your favorite 2 things that we did during practice? That gives you the coach feedback, and that can help you practice plan better next season. These other questions that I just went through, what is the one hitting skill that you're going to work on before next season? What is one defensive skill that you are going to work on before next season? What is one base running skill that you are going to work on? What is the main base running skill? Maybe that's a better way to say it. What is the main base running skill that you are going to work on before the start of next season? What is the main, and this is a lot of players, this goes for a lot of players on the youth level, what is one or the main pitching skill that you are going to work on before next season? If they're advanced, you can maybe go to 2 skills, but I think when you say it's less is more with this approach. Another question that comes back to learning as a coach, getting feedback more specific to the coach. Another question would be, what were 2 specific things that you disliked about the season? What are 2 specific things that you disliked about the season? And you can say on there, winning and losing is not an option. And none of the answers can include anything about winning or losing, because we all know kids would rather win than lose and whatnot. So that's an easy out for them. So what are 2 specific things that the coaching staff did that you didn't like, or 2 things that we did at practice that you didn't like, or what are just 2 things that you disliked about the season? You can also ask a question such as, next season, is there a position that you're interested in playing more of or trying out? Is there another position that you'd like to spend more time, get more time in practice working on? Or is there a position that you would like to start trying out, whether that's pitching or catching or playing first or moving to the outfield? So before I go into a few more examples of these questions, and you can see where these questions are going. So I want to give you the template, because then you can write these questions out. I wouldn't make it an extensive survey, an extensive feedback form. I would try to narrow it down to 5 to 8 questions. I think you're going to dilute the quality of the answers the further those questions, the longer the list of questions gets. I just feel like if they look down and they see 14 questions or 10 questions, they may very likely quickly answer it because they know they got to get through this laundry list, rather than here are these questions, here are these 7 questions, and let them know. Maybe you can say this should take you about 30 minutes. Here's 7 questions. Now, some of them may finish in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but say, players, this would be very helpful for us as a coaching staff to be better for you. Again, this goes back to selling the why. Why are they doing this survey? What's in it for them? I know that sounds like a selfish reason, and in fact, it is in a way. But at the end of the day, we have this inherent what's in it for us, but also what's in it for everybody. Everybody loves a win-win. Everybody, I believe, loves a win-win-win type of situation. Sometimes it's win-win, sometimes it's win-win-win, sometimes it's win-win-win-win. Everybody loves the win-win-win-win, but they want to make sure that they're involved in that win also. And we want to know, how are we winning? And then we want everybody also to win. I think that's inherent, especially with younger players. Now, as you get to be an adult, especially as a parent, sometimes there's no win in it for the parents. You're just sacrificing for your kids, and that's okay. But 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, that's a little harder to get them motivated for something if you don't sell them a little bit on the why it's important to them, how this benefits them and how it benefits the whole team. So you can, when you give this survey, you could have a little paragraph at the top selling the importance and how it benefits them, as something like, as coaches, if we know this information about you, then we can be better coaches for you. The more we know what you're thinking, the more we know what is important to you, the better we can serve you as a coach, the better we can be as a coach. You can also put in there, it's good that you outline and specify the specific skill at the very end of this season while it's still fresh in your mind those particular specific skills that you want to improve for next year. And that can be beneficial for you because then you can start to put together a plan, an action plan to get better for next year. And so this season is a building block for next year. And you will be better next year if you realize and address and say, hey, these are the skills that I need to improve upon. Now, I got a little long-winded there. I wouldn't explain it like that to the player, but you could put a little paragraph at the top of the survey. You could also do it in the form of a quick speech. You can say, hey, players, I'm going to send you this feedback, this survey. I would have all the parents there for the younger groups or everybody. Tell them I'm going to send this survey. This is beneficial for you. It's beneficial for me. It's beneficial for us and the coaching staff and the players. So I would definitely sell the purpose so you get better answers. I would write questions that facilitate, that draw out, that bring out better answers, more quality answers, meaning there's more specificity and it's something that's usable. It's something that's actionable. It's an item. It's information that you can act on, that they can act on specifically to get better, to grow. It's not full of cliches. It's not full of generalizations. So you have better questions written. You sell it to them why this is important to complete this survey, this feedback, and how they benefit, how we all benefit from it. And again, better questions. And lastly, I think having a certain amount of questions is important. Not too few questions and not too many questions. If anything, err on the side of less questions. When they see a large list of questions that they need to answer, there may be hesitation in spending a lot of time on it. Not every player. Again, I'm generalizing with this particular comment about how many questions there should be. Some players will answer 10, 15 questions very thoroughly, but you want to try to hit the masses with your team. You want to try to facilitate great answers from the whole team. And that leads me to my last example question here. There's definitely different questions you can add, but you see where I'm going with this. The last, definitely a question that I would have on there, and it will take however you want to form it and write it. It will say something like this, or it will ask something like this. Is there anything that you'd like to add? Or is there anything that is not on here that you would like to share out? Is there something that is very important that you didn't get to add to an answer on this survey? Please share that out. So it's more of an open-ended question. So if you want to use those 7 questions right there that I just used as examples, what are the 2 favorite things we did during our practices? What are 2 specific things that you disliked about the season outside of winning or losing? What is one hitting skill? What is one specific? What is the main specific hitting skill that you are going to work on and get better at, or try at least to work to get better at before next season? One defensive skill, one base running skill, one pitching skill. And then the last question, number 7, could be an open-ended. Is there something that you would like to share out about the season? What are your thoughts on it? And now I'm going to back up here to the question about what are 2 specific things that you disliked about the season. I highly recommend you ask them, the players, the parents, to add a fix or a proposed solution. Or if you dislike something, what would you have done differently and how does that look? Especially for parents, they can articulate that and probably give a solution that's better. If you didn't like X, what is the answer, or what is your solution? What is your proposed fix for what you disliked? If they're going to write something that they dislike, there should be a request that they add a fix or give a solution or give an alternative that they would have liked better. Now, the parents' questions, those are more for the players, but for the parents, you could ask questions such as, what are your thoughts about the communication between the coaches and the parents? What could have been improved? How could the communication process or the communication as a group from the coaching staff to the players to the parents been improved? Or was it really good as it was? You can ask parents, what are some ideas to make practice even more enjoyable for the players next year? I think asking parents what are 2 specific things they disliked about the season, as long as they add those fixes or solutions or alternative options in there, I think that's a good question to ask parents. Also an open-ended question for parents. Since you won't ask parents about the skills necessarily, you're not going to ask them about the skills. You could maybe for the 7U, I think leaving the parents out and putting the ownership of skill improvement on the players is a better way to handle that. But the younger kids can work with their parents to come up with a solution. So they would do a joint survey like I talked about earlier, 7U, 8U, 9U, 10U, 11U. They would work on the survey together as a family. And so you could have them all kind of pitch in their ideas on the skill. The parents could add their input with the players. But you want that ownership on the skill improvement, defensive skills, base running, hitting skill, the main pitching skill. You want that to really come from the player and drive that ownership of that. But with the parents, you could ask things like what they disliked. What are the 2 things they thought were done really well? You could ask a question such as, what are 2 or 3 things you'd like to see more of? And as I was going to hit on just a second ago, open-ended question. Leave an open-ended open-ended question for the parents. Say, can you write a short paragraph that summarizes your feelings, your thoughts, your impressions of this season, good, bad, or neutral, and have them write that out. I would put on there as a disclaimer at the bottom of the survey for parents, even players that are of a certain age, 12U, 13, 14, definitely high school, college, pro ball. I would put on there a small disclaimer that says, kindly, all of this will be read, all of your feedback, all of your answers are going to be thought through, but I cannot make, or the coaching staff or future coaches can't necessarily guarantee that everything is going to be facilitated moving forward. Every suggestion, every request, fix, or solution, or things that they liked or didn't like, however it shakes out, at the end of the day, you just have to kind of put that there, because if they're giving you all these feedback and they're giving you things that they didn't like, and then the next season you're continuing to do that, you may, before that season comes up, you may say, well, this is why we do X, or this is why we do Y, and there's a reason for it, because players dislike things. Sometimes parents dislike things, or they perceive, their perception is that they dislike it, and they really don't realize, or they don't see the benefit of it. So you might need to explain that as a follow-up to, or at the beginning of the next season, or as just a general follow-up to all the parents utilizing the information. In fact, I recommend that, and this is the last piece I'm going to hit on with this end of the year survey. I do believe in sending a link. Say you can do this for free on a Google Doc. You send the link via email, they fill it out, and their name is not on there. You can do it anonymously. So you can send the link, they open the link, and you can tell them, say, this is anonymous. They don't need to mail it back to you. You can access it via Google. You can use this, and there's other options that do this, but I know the Google option is free, Google Forms. And so Google Forms is a very easy way to do this, and you can see all the answers, but they don't actually have to mail them or email them back to you or send them to you. So they can fill it out anonymously, and then you'll see at the end, you'll say, all right, there's 12 results and there's 12 surveys filled out, and you can go through there. What I would do with that information is I would read it all through, take notes, that especially notes on things that come up multiple times. I would basically send a feedback email or a letter. I would send feedback or give feedback as a half page or just a one-page summary that shares your thoughts and your upcoming and future action steps that you will do using the feedback. You can thank them all for their feedback. You can give them a synopsis of the feedback answers, a summary of the answers, and you can kind of summarize it for everybody in one little letter. You can talk about what you're going to do with it. You can talk about just thanking them for doing it. You can also be very clear and upfront about certain things on there. Hey, I noticed a couple of you put this down. This is why we do it this way, or this is what we have to be careful of, not doing X and Y, instead doing Z. We have to be careful because X and Y are in the foundation of what we're doing. Now, you definitely want to listen and try to see where they're coming from, because they may have some very good suggestions, because nobody knows their kid better. Nobody knows their kid better overall than the parents. So as a coach, if we can get feedback from the player and from the parents, there's some value there, big time value. And there's going to be a win-win opportunity, a win-win-win opportunity. So I would send that feedback. So there's some kind of closure. You're tying it all together, and that can be wrapped up in an end of the year letter that summarizes the season through your perspective, and then tie it in with the survey results and basically kind of a little bit of a farewell end of the year letter that you send them that has a little meaning. I mean, you have an end of the year banquet and you say certain things, but sometimes that letter is cool that they can keep down the road. But I would definitely summarize the survey. At least I would do a summary, your summary as a coach, or the coaching staff's summary of the feedback from those surveys. Okay, so I would do that at the end of the season. Once the season is over, I would try to do it anonymously, and I would try to keep the questions at around 7, I think is plenty. I would definitely try to have the parents fill out their own if it's of a certain age. If they're, you're talking 13, 14U and above, I think the parents should fill out their own and the players should fill out their own. If it's younger, you can have them work together. You have to sell the why, the benefit of the survey, because if they're going to spend 30 minutes, 20 minutes sitting down, I'm thinking 30 minutes to give some good feedback, some good thought, 20 minutes at least to give good thought, good feedback, to give quality answers that actually are going to benefit everybody moving forward. And so that there is very important across the board. I'll tell you what, if you come up with some really good questions, if you really like the questions that you've come up with, email them to me, coachbo@8020baseball.com. Send me them. I'd love to see some of those questions that you guys are coming up with. End of the year survey feedback questions for players and parents. Send them to me. If you have a question about it, send those questions over to me, coachbo@8020baseball.com. We're going to go to the second part of this episode now. we got two relatively shorter parts. That first part was bulkier, and these next two will be a little more concise because these topics don't need as much time to break down. First off, pitching. We talk about hitting and timing and keeping the timing being on time. Well, believe it or not, the rhythm of pitching, the timing of the delivery is very important. This is something that doesn't get discussed a lot, but is very important. To ensure that pitchers have the same timing of their delivery, I recommend that you allow your pitchers to have only two deliveries. They have the wind-up delivery, and that wind-up delivery should look the same or almost identical every time. It's not going to be a precise replica. And if you ever look at motion cameras, slow motion cameras, or analytics like that with the motion sensors or the markerless software that shows this, they really are never, the pitcher's body's never in the exact same place. In the major leagues, they're millimeters different each pitch, and Little League, they could be inches off, and that's a big deal. That's not what I'm talking about here, though. What I'm talking about here is the timing. And the biggest problem or the biggest obstacle to having the same timing, the same delivery timing with the pitch delivery is the leg lift, the leg kick, the knee lift. I call it a leg lift. The pitcher lifts his leg. You remember Nolan Ryan used to have a really big leg lift. Here's what I'm proposing very succinctly. In the windup, their leg lift is the same height every single time, and their stride length is very similar every single time. They may adjust it between outings. They may work on different things during practice and during the off season, but during the game, their leg lift height in the windup and the stride length should be very similar, if not identical, from pitch to pitch. Now, in the stretch, and if you go watch the video that I have on the website, 8020baseball.com, I recommend every single pitcher use a version or a very close version of the power slide step, And the power slide step is when any base runners are on base, and the pitcher it could be a bases loaded, runner at first, runner at second, runner at first and third, doesn't matter, second, third. If there's a runner or runners on base and the pitcher is in the stretch position, I do recommend they always go from the stretch position when a runner's on base. Sometimes when the bases get loaded or there's a runner on third, pitchers will go from the windup from time to time. I recommend that they just stick with the stretch, and I have my reasons. All the years of baseball coaching and playing, I have my reasons for that. I'm not going to get into them right now, but trust me on this. I recommend that definitely for lefties who have their back to third base, definitely have them go from the stretch whenever there's a player on or a base runner on base, and they use the same delivery move, the same delivery each and every time. This is where the biggest flaw, the biggest problem comes about. Pitchers get runners on base and they do quick leg lifts, they do slide steps, they do big leg kicks. And I watch games all the time from youth level all the way to major league level. And the pitcher, if they have a runner on base, it's the first inning, the leadoff guy gets on, for example, and there's a runner on base for like the next 14 pitches of that inning. You'll see three different deliveries. You'll see the leg lift go a little higher one pitch. You'll see a short leg lift. You'll see a medium leg lift. You'll see the stride length starts to vary a little bit. The stride length varies less, or there's less of a stride length variation, but when it comes to pitching, you don't see it as much. Sometimes I see pitchers take long strides, shorter strides, medium strides, or just a couple, even like 6 inches further can make a big difference in the timing at release point. So timing is essentially from the first movement a pitcher makes, the same amount of time until they release the pitch, release point. That's the biggest thing. Now, there's definitely things in there that are important that I'm leaving out, but the big needle mover is, are they keeping their timing from the first movement to release similar? And that will almost always be dictated by the leg lift for the most part in the stretch. In the stretch position, it's almost always dictated by the leg lift height. You want it to have the same rhythm and timing as close as possible from pitch to pitch. This is super important. So I recommend pitchers be allowed to have a windup and a stretch. Tell them anybody's on base, automatic. It's just less thinking out there. It's like you hear these stories about these very productive people in their lives, and they don't spend a lot of time picking out their outfits in the morning. They have set outfits. They don't sit there and spend a lot of time trying to figure out what they're going to eat for breakfast. They have a set routine. They're saving that bandwidth that they're using to make decisions. They're saving it for more important things. And the same holds true across the board in life, and definitely as a baseball player. The less things, the more autopilot we can get our players, the more they can focus and hone in on those important things and not get their bandwidth spread out so thin that their focus is on things that are not that important or that could just be defaulted. A default or an autopilot move is, all right, nobody's on base, you go wind up. And you keep your leg lift the same height. Your wind up should look the same. If we need to adjust it it from start to start, or if we need to adjust it in the offseason, we can do that. If a runner's on base, no matter what, runner's on base, we're going from the stretch. You don't need to look over at the dugout and, hey, can I go from the windup? Should I go from the stretch? No, a runner's on base or runners are on base. You are pitching from the stretch and you are using the power slide step. Now, that height of the power slide step might be a few inches lower or higher depending on the pitcher, but it's going to be very similar. Now, the rest of their motion may have variations depending on the pitcher, arm angle, arm slot, things like that, their pitch repertoire. That will be a little different. I get that, but let's keep the timing of the delivery as similar from pitch to pitch as we can. This is a huge competitive advantage for pitchers that's just sitting out there because the baseball world has not solved this. And it's not that it doesn't need to be solved. It does need to be solved. It definitely is a huge competitive advantage. It's just something that nobody is really talking about out there. I've never heard anybody talk about this. Okay, I had to do some deductive reasoning and testing on my own and see it and go, okay, this is definitely the way to go. Now, there's probably some old school baseball coaches listening to this that are like, trust me, if you only think how things have always been done, you're always going to be behind the curve. You're always going to be late to the party, all right? You're always going to be late. Now, there are some people that try to jump so far ahead to be the first person to do whatever, and that can backfire because they actually end up spending time on things that don't yield productivity or results. I get that too. But there's so much of this, well, this is how we did it. This is what we did. We always did this. We always sacrifice bunt when there's a second runner on first and second with no outs. We always do that or this, that, and the other. And they're left in the dust because everything in life evolves and everything we get smarter at. Everybody as a collective whole is getting smarter at everything. Can you imagine if we took the same approach that baseball has taken in a lot of ways and just said, no, these stage coaches, they're better. They're just better. These cars, no. And could you imagine if we just left cars the same and they're like, nah, I don't know. Hey, that Tesla idea, Elon, you sound good, but no. Let's stick with, could you imagine where we'd be? We'd still be riding donkeys and horses right now and walking across, doing all that. We wouldn't have air conditioned cars with airbags and things like that. Now, you can make an argument that might be a better world, not driving around, maybe just living locally in villages and things and all that. Maybe technology is not good. But my point is, could you imagine where we would be if we didn't evolve? And that's kind of where the baseball community leaves these big gaps of competitive advantages that are just sitting there. And I think this is one of them. Getting your pitchers to have you have two sets of timing with the delivery. You have your windup and you have your stretch position, which I call the power slide step. It's not a slide step. It's more of a power. There's a leg lift. Go check out the video 8020baseball.com, and that video shows you exactly how to implement the power slide step, what it looks like, and it breaks it down for you. All right, so we've talked about end of the year survey, and we talked about a specific part of the pitching delivery that can be optimized or made to be better, to be more productive, to be more consistent, and more consistency with timing equals better. The biggest thing of this is going to be command. The biggest benefit of all that is going to be command. Maybe I should have started off that segment by saying this next topic is going to benefit the pitcher's command and also arm health, but definitely the command of the pitches, throwing more strikes, hitting the glove more. And that's why you want to have similar timing with your delivery, your pitching delivery, when you're out there on the mound, when these pitchers are out there on the mound. Now, I do apologize. I got a cold and I got a stuffed nose right now, so I know my voice sounds a little bit different, but I'm doing my best trying to adjust the audio. I'm going to send this over to my editor, my great editor, Sam, and I'm going to send that over. If you guys need any editors for anything, anybody, reach out to me, Coach Bo at 8020baseball.com, or you can go to 8020baseball.com and reach out to me on the website, and I'll give you Sam's information. He does a great job editing this podcast on the weekly basis, and I'm going to send it over to him, and hopefully we can get a little of this nasally sound out of there. But nonetheless, I think it's just the spring season, baseball season, plants are blooming, and I got that stuffy nose. But with that said, let's wrap up the last part here. You know what? We're going to get to this next week. I'm looking at the time on this. We're already at our 30-minute mark. I want to set this up. We'll set this up for next week. I do like that 30-minute mark because I think it's doable. It's something that it allows all of you the opportunity to get that in every week. I think 30 minutes, okay, how much time does everybody have in their lives? I know this stuff is important, but if I'm throwing out all this stuff here, there, these long episodes, I feel like if you start falling behind, what I really want is all the coaches, all you great coaches, when you're listening to this, to follow along week to week with this. I want it to be something that you have time for that 30-minute, that 25-minute, that 35-minute episode each week and continue the growth as a coach. each of you getting better and better along the way. So next week, we'll get into that topic. I'll also discuss a book that was well before Moneyball from the 80s, a lesser known book, but it's a book that started to change the way I looked at baseball. And I stopped looking at baseball as I learned it or as I was told, but also what it did was it made me start to look at it in a, is there a better way to do it mindset? I started to develop my paradigm well before I started coaching when I was still playing. And that paradigm of, is there a way to improve this? Is there data? Is there information? Are there results that we can use and see and assess that tell us that there is a better way, that shows us that there is a better way, or there is a more optimal way to coach the game of baseball, to play the game of baseball? And so this book is a lesser known book, but it definitely is a classic in the baseball community. I'll make that recommendation next week. We're going to talk about something that we all need to start doing now and definitely during the summer to get ready for next year so we can be ready and loaded, ready to go for next year, for the next season, which for some of you is going to be the fall. And for some of you, it may be winter, early spring. With that said, always a blast being here with all of you. Thank you. Reach out to me, Coach Bo at 80/20 Baseball. Give me your feedback. Ask me a question that you might want to see covered on the podcast. I'll tell you what, I've had a lot of coaches reach out, and all of you, and I know you're listening, you great coaches that have reached out to me, you've emailed me, I think all of you have had almost every single question that you've reached out to ask me has been answered on the podcast. I've been able to slide it in. Now, these are pre-scripted. I'm usually 2 or 3 episodes ahead with how I want to lay it out because I want it to have some sequence. I want it to have some order. Also, I don't want to just willy-nilly things together and piece it together last minute. I want to have things set up and I prioritize them. Sometimes I shift them around to see this is going to be a better fit in this order or that order. But with that said, you send me your questions, you send me a topic you'd like me to hit. I will do my best to slot it in to an upcoming episode. In the meantime, go to 8020baseball.com. I got articles over there, videos. Go check those videos out. 8020baseball.com. The number's 8020baseball.com. Go over there. You can get the drill mastery guide for free. You can get that. You just put your first name and then your email in there, and it comes to my email at coachbo8020baseball.com, or you can just send it over to me. You can just email me, coachbo8020baseball.com, and request the drill mastery guide. I'm big on this thing. This thing I took a lot of time to put together, a lot of years breaking down and really going, what makes an optimal drill? What are the parts? What are the 8 parts to the perfect drill design? It's basically drill design. It's a guide to design any type of drill anywhere and what it needs. What are the components it needs? And I also share examples. There's a lot more in there. It's a 10-page PDF and it's packed with good stuff. So if you want that, go to the website. You can submit that on the bottom of the homepage, or you can email me directly, coachbo at 8020baseball.com. Thank you, all of you coaches that are supporting the podcast. You can do that using the link in the summary on your podcast app real quick. It takes just a couple minutes. You can support the podcast, and I'm going to keep bringing my best for you. I don't want to just put out just a bunch of junk just to put out a podcast. There's already so many podcasts. I want to keep bringing you a quality podcast each and every week. Our weekly get together, our weekly 25-30 minute get together each week that we discuss how to be better coaches, how to make the baseball community a better place. Until next week, thank you all. Take care of yourselves, take care of your health, take care of those families, and take all this information. Take this information that we're discussing here and apply it. Apply it. I was talking to some people the other day. I said, you know what? Information, knowledge, it's not power. Information and knowledge, it does nothing for us. Learning new things does nothing at all for us unless we go and apply it, unless we go and implement it into our lives, unless we start testing it out in our lives at a bare minimum. Just start implementing it, applying it, testing it out. Because just learning, hearing, absorbing, taking in, reading, listening, that does nothing unless we take it and then transfer it out to the application process. So we start putting it into our practices, we start utilizing it, we start taking the time to build our systems up and actually use all this information that we're talking about. So don't just listen, go out and apply all this stuff and make yourself a better coach. And until next week's get together, take care. Bye.
This has been the 80/20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.